Elvis Presley, 1935–1977. Elvis Aaron Presley is widely regarded as one of the most significant cultural figures of the 20th century. Born in Tupelo, Mississippi, and later moving to Memphis, Tennessee, he fused country music with rhythm and blues to create a sound that would define rock and roll. His early recordings at Sun Studio, such as That's All Right, launched a career that saw him become the best-selling solo music artist of all time. Beyond music, he starred in over 30 films and revolutionized the Las Vegas residency format in the 1970s. However, behind the rhinestones and the unprecedented fame, Presley lived a life of extreme isolation and dangerous excess. By the mid-1970s, Presley's lifestyle had become increasingly perilous. He was surrounded by a small circle of employees and friends known as the Memphis Mafia, who catered to his every whim. This environment enabled a severe dependence on prescription medications. Presley's physician, Dr. George Nicopolis, later faced legal scrutiny for the sheer volume of narcotics prescribed to the singer. Presley consumed a staggering cocktail of sedatives, amphetamines, and painkillers daily to manage his grueling touring schedule and chronic insomnia. His diet was equally reckless, consisting of high-calorie, fried foods that contributed to rapid weight gain and deteriorating health. He often rented out entire movie theaters or amusement parks in the middle of the night to avoid public mobbing, further deepening his disconnection from reality. On August 16, 1977, the danger of this lifestyle culminated in tragedy. Presley was found unresponsive on the bathroom floor of his Graceland mansion in Memphis. Attempts to revive him failed, and he was pronounced dead at Baptist Memorial Hospital. While the official cause of death was listed as cardiac arrhythmia, toxicology reports revealed high levels of multiple prescription drugs in his system, suggesting that polypharmacy played a critical role in his heart failure at the age of 42. The story of Elvis Presley's grave is almost as dramatic as his life. Originally, he was buried in a mausoleum at Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis, alongside his mother Gladys. However, just weeks after the funeral, police uncovered a plot to steal Presley's body and hold it for ransom. 3 men were arrested with explosives and digging equipment near the cemetery walls. Fearing for the security of the remains, Presley's father, Vernon, received permission to move the bodies of both Elvis and Gladys to the grounds of Graceland. Today, Elvis rests in the Meditation Garden, a serene area just past the swimming pool at the Graceland estate. The grave is marked by a large bronze plaque and an eternal flame. In recent years, the site has expanded tragically. His grandson, Benjamin Keogh, was buried there in 2020, and his daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, joined them after her death in January of 2023. The Meditation Garden is one of the most visited private grave sites in the world, attracting over 500,000 pilgrims annually who walk past the curved brick wall to pay respects to the man who lived and died at a pace the world had never seen before. 17. Jim Morrison, 1943–1971. Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, was a poet and songwriter who became the avatar of 1960s counterculture rebellion. Born in Florida and educated at UCLA's film school, Morrison combined literary references with psychedelic rock to create hits like Light My Fire and Riders on the Storm. His stage persona, the Lizard King, was mesmerizing and unpredictable. He challenged authority and social norms, becoming the first rock star arrested on stage during a concert in New Haven, Connecticut in 1967. Morrison's lifestyle was a textbook definition of dangerous self-destruction. He rejected the peace and love ethos of the hippie movement in favor of a darker, more chaotic existence fueled by heavy alcohol consumption and drug use. His behavior became increasingly erratic. He allegedly exposed himself to a crowd in Miami in 1969, leading to a legal battle that drained him emotionally and financially. By 1971, seeking an escape from his fame and legal troubles, he moved to Paris, France, with his girlfriend Pamela Corson, hoping to focus on writing poetry. On the morning of July 3, 1971, Corson found Morrison dead in the bathtub of their apartment in the Le Marais district. He was 27 years old. No official autopsy was performed because French law did not require one if no foul play was suspected. a fact that has fueled decades of conspiracy theories ranging from a fake death to an accidental heroin overdose at a nearby nightclub. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure. Morrison was buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, one of the most prestigious cemeteries in the world, resting near luminaries like Oscar Wilde and Edith Piaf. For decades, his grave was a site of chaotic pilgrimage. Fans covered the surrounding tombstones with graffiti, left drug paraphernalia, and partied at the site, causing significant distress to the cemetery administration and the families of others buried nearby. The grave itself has undergone significant changes due to vandalism. In 1981, a Croatian sculptor created a white marble bust of Morrison to mark the 10th anniversary of his death. Over the years, fans defaced the bust with graffiti and chipped away pieces of the nose as souvenirs. In 1988, the heavy bust was stolen entirely and has never been recovered. Today, the grave is far more modest, featuring a flat stone with a bronze plaque bearing the Greek inscription Kata ton daimona eitoi, which roughly translates to "true to his own spirit." To protect the site from further desecration, cemetery officials have erected a metal barricade around the plot, though this has not stopped fans from throwing flowers, notes, and bottles of whiskey over the fence as tribute. 16. Jimi Hendrix, 1942–1970. James Marshall Hendrix, known to the world as Jimi Hendrix, is frequently cited as the greatest electric guitarist in music history. Born in Seattle, Washington, he transformed the sound of rock music in just 4 years of mainstream success. After a brief stint in the U.S. Army, he moved to the United Kingdom, where he formed the Jimi Hendrix Experience. His innovative use of feedback, distortion, and the wah-wah pedal created a sonic landscape that had never existed before. His performances at the Monterey Pop Festival, where he burned his guitar, and Woodstock, where he played a deconstructed version of the national anthem, are legendary. Hendrix's life was lived at a breakneck speed. He was immersed in the psychedelic drug culture of the late 1960s, using LSD, amphetamines, and cannabis heavily. His sleeping patterns were non-existent, often working in the studio for days without rest. The pressure from management to tour constantly, combined with his own perfectionism and substance use, left him physically and mentally exhausted. He was surrounded by hangers-on and faced immense stress from legal battles over his recording contracts. On September 18, 1970, Hendrix died in London at the apartment of a girlfriend. He had taken 9 Vesperax sleeping tablets, 18 times the recommended dosage, and asphyxiated on his own vomit while unconscious. He was 27 years old. The coroner returned an open verdict, stating there was insufficient evidence to prove suicide, ruling it a tragic accident caused by barbiturate intoxication. Hendrix's body was flown back to Seattle, where he was buried at Greenwood Memorial Park in Renton, Washington. For over 3 decades, his grave was a simple, flat headstone that read, "Forever in our hearts." However, this modest site became overwhelmed by the volume of visitors, who often trampled neighboring graves in the rain-soaked mud to get close to the guitar icon. In 1995, Hendrix's father, Al Hendrix, won a lengthy legal battle to regain control of his son's estate. With these funds, he commissioned a massive memorial to honor Jimi properly. In 2002, Jimi's remains were exhumed and moved to a new location within the same cemetery. The current site is a large granite dome supported by 3 pillars, with a life-size bronze statue of Hendrix playing a Stratocaster. The memorial also serves as a family plot, housing the remains of his father and other relatives. The interior of the dome features etched portraits of Hendrix and lyrics from his songs. It is a shrine that befits a rock deity, designed to accommodate the thousands of fans who visit annually without damaging the surrounding grounds. 15. Marilyn Monroe, 1926–1962. Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen, rose from a traumatic childhood in foster care to become the ultimate Hollywood sex symbol. She starred in commercially successful films like Some Like It Hot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and The 7-Year Itch. Her comedic timing and screen presence made her one of the most bankable stars in the world. However, her professional success masked a life of deep personal instability. She struggled with severe anxiety, depression, and endometriosis, often causing delays on film sets that earned her a reputation for being difficult to work with. Monroe's dangerous lifestyle was characterized by a dependency on pharmaceuticals prescribed by doctors who often enabled her addiction. She relied on barbiturates to sleep and amphetamines to wake up, a cycle that wreaked havoc on her physical and mental health. Her high-profile marriages to baseball star Joe DiMaggio and playwright Arthur Miller ended in divorce, deepening her feelings of abandonment. By 1962, her behavior had become erratic enough that she was fired from the film Something's Got to Give. On August 4, 1962, Monroe was found dead in her Brentwood home at the age of 36. The cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning, resulting from a massive overdose of Nembutal and chloral hydrate. The coroner ruled it a probable suicide, though the circumstances surrounding her death, including the timing of the discovery and the involvement of the Kennedy family, have sparked endless conspiracy theories. Monroe was interred in a crypt at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Her vault is located in the Corridor of Memories, number 24. For decades, the crypt was instantly recognizable because the stone had turned a shade of pink. This discoloration was caused by thousands of fans wearing red lipstick who would kiss the stone while paying their respects. In recent years, the cemetery administration has replaced the stone to remove the stains and asked visitors to refrain from kissing the wall to preserve the marble. The placement of her grave has also been a subject of controversy. In 1992, Playboy founder Hugh Hefner purchased the crypt immediately to the left of Monroe's for $75,000. Hefner, who launched his magazine with unauthorized nude photos of Monroe, claimed he wanted to spend eternity next to her. When Hefner died in 2017, he was buried in that spot, a move that many critics and fans found disrespectful, given that Monroe never consented to her association with him during her life. Despite the crowding, Monroe's crypt remains a solemn landmark in Hollywood history. 14. John Belushi, 1949–1982. John Belushi was a comedic force of nature who defined the late 1970s. As one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live, he brought an anarchic energy to television that had never been seen before. He simultaneously starred in the highest-grossing comedy of the era, National Lampoon's Animal House, and had a #1 album with the Blues Brothers. In 1978, he achieved the rare trifecta of having the #1 show, #1 movie, and #1 album in the country in the same week. Belushi's lifestyle was legendary for its excess. He was a central figure in the drug culture of Hollywood and New York, consuming massive quantities of cocaine and alcohol. His substance abuse was not recreational but compulsive. He used drugs to fuel his manic creative energy and to cope with the pressures of sudden superstardom. Friends and colleagues, including Dan Aykroyd and Robin Williams, attempted to intervene, but Belushi's appetites were ungovernable. He would often disappear for days, surfacing in random homes or hotels, driven by an insatiable need for stimulation. On March 5, 1982, Belushi was found dead in Bungalow 3 of the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Los Angeles. He was 33 years old. The cause of death was combined drug intoxication involving cocaine and heroin, a mixture known as a speedball. A woman named Kathy Smith later admitted to administering the fatal injection and served a prison sentence for involuntary manslaughter. Belushi was buried at Abels Hill Cemetery on Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, an island he loved for its tranquility. However, his grave did not remain tranquil. Fans flocked to the site, often leaving beer cans, drug paraphernalia, and litter as misguided tributes to his party animal persona. The constant foot traffic began to damage the surrounding landscape and disrespect the other families with plots in the small, rural cemetery. To solve this, Belushi's widow, Judith, organized a plan to mislead the public. His body remains in the cemetery, but his tombstone was moved to a different, unmarked location or replaced to confuse visitors. A large boulder now stands near the entrance as a decoy memorial bearing a skull and crossbones and the inscription, "I may be gone, but rock and roll lives on." This allows fans to leave their tributes without disturbing the actual resting place of the comedian, whose real grave remains a quiet secret known only to his closest family. 13. Bon Scott, 1946 to 1980, Ronald Belford. Bon Scott was the charismatic lead singer of the Australian hard rock band AC/DC. Born in Scotland and raised in Australia, Scott's raspy vocals and mischievous stage presence helped propel the band to international stardom with albums like Highway to Hell. He was the embodiment of the rock and roll lifestyle, wild, funny, and utterly reckless. His lyrics often celebrated drinking, fighting, and sexual escapades, mirroring his real-life behavior on the road. Scott lived dangerously through his heavy consumption of alcohol. He was known for his ability to drink prodigious amounts of liquor and his penchant for reckless adventures. He had survived a horrific motorcycle accident in 1974 that left him in a coma for 3 days, yet he continued to live without limits. By 1980, AC/DC was on the verge of massive global success, but Scott's drinking had escalated to dangerous levels. On the night of February 18, 1980, Scott went out drinking at a club in London called the Music Machine. He consumed a large amount of alcohol and eventually passed out in a car parked outside a friend's house in East Dulwich. The friend, Alistair Kinnear, left Scott in the vehicle to sleep it off. When Kinnear returned the next evening, he found Scott lifeless. He was pronounced dead on arrival at King's College Hospital. The official cause of death was acute alcohol poisoning and death by misadventure, specifically choking on his own vomit while unconscious. He was 33 years old. Scott's body was returned to Australia, where he was cremated and his ashes interred at Fremantle Cemetery in Western Australia. His grave is one of the most visited cultural landmarks in Australia. The site features a memorial gate and a plaque, which is frequently stolen by souvenir hunters. In 2006, the National Trust of Australia classified his grave as a classified heritage site, a rare honor for a rock musician. A bronze statue of Scott stands nearby, depicting him singing atop a Marshall amplifier. The site is a pilgrimage destination for rock fans, who often leave bottles of bourbon and cola, Scott's favorite drink, on the ledger of the grave. 12. Chris Farley, 1964–1997. Chris Farley was a comedic supernova who idolized John Belushi and tragically followed in his footsteps almost exactly. Rising to fame on Saturday Night Live in the early 1990s, Farley was known for his high-energy physical comedy and his vulnerability. He starred in successful films like Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. His comedy often relied on his size and his willingness to degrade himself for a laugh, but friends knew him as a deeply sensitive and devoutly Catholic man who struggled with his self-image. Farley's dangerous lifestyle was an open secret in Hollywood. He battled severe obesity and addictions to alcohol, cocaine, and heroin. He went to rehab no fewer than 17 times in the final years of his life, but could not maintain sobriety. He engaged in speedball use and often hired sex workers, seeking companionship in a life that felt increasingly lonely despite his fame. His behavior became chaotic. He was expelled from SNL hosts' after-parties for being too out of control and was suspended from the show at least once to seek treatment. On December 18, 1997, Farley was found dead in his apartment in the John Hancock Center in Chicago. He was 33 years old, the same age at which his idol Belushi had died. The autopsy revealed he died of an overdose of cocaine and morphine. Advanced atherosclerosis was listed as a significant contributing factor. Farley was flown back to his hometown of Madison, Wisconsin. He is buried at Resurrection Cemetery. His grave is located in a mausoleum marked by a simple plaque in a column niche. Unlike the chaotic graves of some rock stars, Farley's resting place is quiet and respectful, reflecting the religious background of his family. Fans still visit to pay respects, often leaving small toy cars, replicas of the Plymouth GTX from Tommy Boy, on the ledge of the niche. It serves as a somber reminder of a brilliant talent consumed by the very excesses he used to entertain the world. 11. Whitney Houston, 1963–2012. Whitney Houston was one of the most awarded female artists of all time, known as The Voice for her extraordinary vocal range and power. Her hits like I Will Always Love You and I Wanna Dance with Somebody defined the pop and R&B landscape of the 1980s and 90s. She sold over 200 million records worldwide and starred in the blockbuster film The Bodyguard. However, Houston's life became defined by a tumultuous marriage to singer Bobby Brown and a spiraling addiction to crack cocaine and other substances. Her dangerous lifestyle played out in the tabloids, with photos of her disheveled bathroom filled with drug paraphernalia shocking the public. She suffered from dramatic weight loss and erratic vocal performances, eventually losing the pristine clarity of the voice that had made her a legend. Her decline was slow and public, marked by failed rehab stints and canceled concerts. On February 11, 2012, Houston was found submerged in the bathtub of her suite at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills. She was preparing to attend a pre-Grammy party. The coroner ruled her death an accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. Toxicology results showed she was acutely intoxicated at the time of her death. Houston was buried at Fairview Cemetery in Westfield, New Jersey, the town near where she grew up. She was laid to rest next to her father, John Houston. Her tombstone is a large, teardrop-shaped monument engraved with her portrait and the lyrics, "I will always love you." Tragically, the site became a dual grave in 2015. Her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, died at the age of 22 under eerily similar circumstances, found unresponsive in a bathtub, and was buried in the same plot, right next to her mother. The grave is heavily guarded to prevent vandalism and ensure the privacy of the family. 10. Graham Parsons, 1946 to 1973. Graham Parsons was a pioneering musician who developed cosmic American music, a hybrid of country, soul, and rock. He was a member of the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers and was a mentor to Keith Richards and Emmylou Harris. Though he never achieved massive commercial success during his lifetime, his influence on the genre of country rock was profound. Parsons lived a wealthy trust fund lifestyle that allowed for unchecked indulgence. He was deeply immersed in the drug culture of the late 60s, particularly heroin and alcohol. He had a fascination with Joshua Tree National Monument in California, where he would go to take psychedelics and watch the sky for UFOs. He had made a pact with his road manager, Phil Kaufman, that if either of them died, the survivor would not let the body be taken to a funeral home but would instead burn it in the desert to set the spirit free. On September 19, 1973, Parsons died of an overdose of morphine and alcohol in a motel room in Joshua Tree. He was 26 years old. His stepfather attempted to have the body shipped to Louisiana for a private burial to secure rights to Parsons' estate. However, Phil Kaufman intervened to honor the pact. Kaufman stole the body from Los Angeles International Airport by impersonating a hearse driver. He drove the coffin to Joshua Tree, doused it in 5 gallons of gasoline, and set it on fire near Cap Rock. The body was only partially cremated before police arrived. The charred remains were eventually recovered and shipped to Louisiana, where they were buried in the Garden of Memories in Metairie. The grave is a flat bronze marker that reads, "God's Own Singer." However, the true memorial for many fans is the site at Cap Rock in Joshua Tree, where they leave graffiti and offerings on the rocks, marking the spot where his friends tried to send him off in a blaze of glory. 9. Keith Moon, 1946-1978. Keith Moon, the drummer for The Who, was known as Moon the Loon. He is widely considered one of the greatest drummers in rock history, bringing a chaotic lead instrument style to the drums. But his offstage antics were even more famous. Moon lived a life of total destruction. He drove cars into swimming pools. Though this specific story is debated, the sentiment is accurate. Destroyed hundreds of hotel rooms with explosives, and consumed alcohol and pills in quantities that baffled medical professionals. Moon's dangerous lifestyle was a constant performance. He could not stand silence or boredom. He was never heroin-dependent like many peers, but his alcoholism was severe. In an attempt to get sober, he was prescribed heminevrin, a powerful sedative used to treat alcohol withdrawal symptoms. The danger was that the drug itself was highly addictive and lethal if mixed with alcohol. On September 7, 1978, Moon died in a flat in Mayfair, London, the exact same apartment where Mama Cass had died 4 years earlier. He had taken 32 heminevrin tablets. 6 were digested and 26 were found undigested in his stomach. He was 32 years old. Moon was cremated at Golders Green Crematorium in London. For many years there was no specific marker, as his ashes were scattered in the Gardens of Remembrance. However, a plaque was eventually erected in the crematorium's west cloister to provide a focal point for fans. It reads simply, Keith Moon, 1946-1978, drummer of The Who. It sits among the memorials of other British icons, a quiet end for the loudest man in rock. 8. Sid Vicious, 1957-1979. Sid Vicious, born John Simon Ritchie, was the bass player for the Sex Pistols and the poster child for the nihilism of the punk rock movement. He had limited musical ability but possessed the perfect look and attitude for the band. His life was a whirlwind of violence, self-mutilation, and heroin addiction. His relationship with Nancy Spungen was notoriously toxic. Both were heavily addicted to heroin and lived in squalor at the Hotel Chelsea in New York. On October 12, 1978, Spungen was found stabbed to death in their hotel room. Vicious was charged with her murder but claimed he had no memory of the event due to drug intoxication. While out on bail, Vicious attended a party to celebrate his release. On the morning of February 2, 1979, he was found dead of a heroin overdose. He was 21 years old. The story of his grave is a mystery. His mother, Anne Beverly, wanted to bury him next to Nancy Spungen in Pennsylvania, but Spungen's Jewish family refused to allow his remains in the cemetery. Vicious was cremated in New Jersey. According to punk legend, his mother accidentally dropped the urn at Heathrow Airport, scattering his ashes on the terminal floor. Another version of the story claims she scattered them over Spungen's grave in secret, defying the family's wishes. There is no official grave for Sid Vicious, making him a ghost of the punk era with no final resting place. 7. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, 1971-2002. Lisa Lopes was the creative force behind the R&B supergroup TLC. She was the crazy in the group's crazy, sexy, cool image, known for her rapping, songwriting, and eccentric fashion, including wearing condoms on her glasses to promote safe sex. She was a volatile and spirited figure. She famously burned down the mansion of her boyfriend, NFL player Andre Rison, in a fit of rage in 1994. Lopes was deeply spiritual and constantly sought cleansing and redemption. She felt pursued by a sense of foreboding in her final years. In 2002, she traveled to Honduras for a spiritual retreat, hoping to document her journey and help others. While there, she was involved in a car accident as a passenger where a young boy was killed, an event that deeply traumatized her and which she felt was a bad omen. Days later, on April 25, 2002, Lopes was driving an SUV when she lost control, swerved off the road, and the vehicle rolled several times. She was killed instantly. She was 30 years old. She is buried at Hillendale Memorial Gardens in Lithonia, Georgia. Her grave is a large marble structure featuring her portrait and lyrics from her rap in the hit song Waterfalls. The inscription reads, "Dreams are hopeless aspirations in hopes of coming true. Believe in yourself. The rest is up to you." 6. Brandon Lee, 1965-1993. Brandon Lee was the son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee. He was an emerging action star in his own right, attempting to step out of his father's shadow. In 1993, he landed his breakout role as Eric Draven in the gothic superhero film The Crow. The movie dealt with themes of death and resurrection, and the atmosphere on set was reportedly plagued by accidents and a dark mood. The dangerous lifestyle here was not of Lee's making, but rather the dangerous negligence of the film industry. On March 31, 1993, while filming a scene where his character is shot by thugs, a prop gun was improperly prepared. A fragment of a dummy bullet from a previous take had become lodged in the barrel. When the gun was fired with a blank charge, the force propelled the obstruction out like a real bullet. Lee was struck in the abdomen and died after hours of surgery. He was 28 years old. He is buried next to his father, Bruce Lee, at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle, Washington. The two graves side by side are a major tourist attraction. Brandon's stone is designed to match his father's red granite marker. It features a quote from Paul Bowles that Lee had chosen for his wedding invitations. "Because we don't know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well, 5. Bruce Lee, 1940–1973. Bruce Lee is the most influential martial artist of all time. He bridged the gap between East and West, creating a new genre of action cinema with films like Enter the Dragon. He developed his own philosophy and fighting style, Jeet Kune Do. Lee lived with intense physical and mental discipline, but he also pushed his body to dangerous extremes. He trained constantly, used electrical muscle stimulation to increase his speed, and consumed cannabis to manage stress. In the months leading up to his death, he suffered from cerebral edema, swelling of the brain, and collapsed on set. On July 20, 1973, Lee died in Hong Kong after taking a headache medication called Equagesic. He had an allergic reaction to the tranquilizer in the pill, which caused his brain to swell rapidly. He was 32 years old. He is buried at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle. His grave is a place of pilgrimage for martial artists from around the world. The reddish-brown granite headstone bears his name and the inscription, "Founder of Jeet Kune Do." A small open book made of stone sits at the base, usually covered in coins and flowers left by visitors. 4. Brian Jones, 1942–1969. Brian Jones was the founder and original leader of the Rolling Stones. A multi-instrumentalist genius, he gave the band its blues purist direction. However, as Mick Jagger and Keith Richards took over songwriting duties, Jones felt marginalized. He retreated into a dangerous haze of drugs and alcohol. By 1969, Jones's substance abuse had made him unreliable and physically frail. He was fired from the band he created in June of that year. Less than a month later, on July 3, 1969, Jones was found motionless at the bottom of his swimming pool at Cochford Farm in East Sussex, the former home of A. Milne, author of Winnie the Pooh. The coroner ruled it death by misadventure, noting his liver and heart were enlarged from drug and alcohol abuse. He is buried in Cheltenham Cemetery in Gloucestershire. His grave was reportedly paid for by Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman, the only Rolling Stones members to attend the funeral. The headstone is made of metal and marble, heavily inscribed, standing as a lonely tribute to the first member of the 27 Club. 3. Tupac Shakur, 1971–1996. Tupac Amaru Shakur was a rapper, actor, and activist who became a symbol of West Coast hip-hop. His lyrics dealt with inner-city hardship, racism, and betrayal. He lived a life inextricably linked to the thug life persona he rapped about, which involved constant legal trouble and violent rivalries. In 1994, he survived being shot 5 times in a robbery. In 1996, the danger escalated due to the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop feud. On September 7, 1996, while driving in Las Vegas with Suge Knight, Tupac was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting. He died 6 days later on September 13. He was 25 years old. Tupac was cremated. While there is no traditional grave, his mother, Afeni Shakur, commissioned a statue of him at the Tupac Amaru Shakur Center for the Arts in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Some of his ashes were famously mixed with marijuana and smoked by his rap group, The Outlaws, in a bizarre tribute to his lyrics, "Smoked like a blunt." The rest of his ashes were scattered by his mother in a private ceremony in Soweto, South Africa, and in her garden in Stone Mountain. 2. River Phoenix, 1970–1993. River Phoenix was the most promising actor of his generation, an Academy Award nominee known for Stand By Me and Running on Empty. He was a vegan, an environmentalist, and a musician who publicly shunned the Hollywood lifestyle. However, privately, Phoenix had begun experimenting with hard drugs to cope with his traumatic childhood in the Children of God cult and the pressures of fame. On the night of October 30, 1993, he was at the Viper Room, a club owned by Johnny Depp. Phoenix consumed a drink containing dissolved cocaine and heroin, a liquid speedball, and began convulsing on the sidewalk outside. He died in the early hours of October 31st. He was 23 years old. Phoenix was cremated. His ashes were scattered at his family's ranch in Florida, meaning there is no public grave for fans to visit. This lack of a physical site has led many fans to treat the sidewalk outside the Viper Room on the Sunset Strip as a de facto memorial, often leaving flowers on the anniversary of his death. 1. G.G. Allin, 1956–1993. Kevin Michael, Gigi. Allin was perhaps the most dangerous and extreme performer in rock history. A punk vocalist, his shows were notorious for on-stage defecation, self-mutilation, and physical assaults on the audience. He constantly threatened to commit suicide on stage on Halloween. On June 27, 1993, Allin played a chaotic show in Manhattan that ended in a riot. He then walked the streets naked and covered in blood and feces, eventually going to a friend's apartment where he overdosed on heroin. He died on June 28. He was 36 years old. Allin was buried at St. Rose of Lima Cemetery in Littleton, New Hampshire. His funeral was an open casket party where friends put drugs in his mouth and poured whiskey on him. For years, his grave was the most vandalized in America. Fans would defecate on the stone, pour alcohol on it, and chip off pieces, taking his scumfuck philosophy literally. The priest eventually refused to allow further burials near him. Finally, the headstone was removed entirely to stop the desecration. He now lies in an unmarked plot, a fittingly chaotic end for the man who wanted to destroy rock and roll.